Okay, here once again we are trying to find the image from the composition of transformations. This time we're doing two things, a reflection and then a rotation. And we're starting with just a line segment, RS. And I've got some step-by-step items that are going to guide us through this. And the first one with any kind of these compositions, you've just got to graph the original. The original image here is a line segment. That's RS, and we said that it's at 1, -3. So if this is my x and y axis, 1, -3 is going to be down here in the fourth quadrant. So that's R. And then S is at, let's see, 2, -6. So 2, -6. There's S. Connect them. Oh, that's not a very straight line. Okay, and then I'm going to, again, list these over here to see if there's any kind of pattern that I can pick out of my coordinates when they transform from one shape to the next prime image. So that's 2, -6, and again, sorry, I gave you some extra boxes that aren't really necessary there. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do with this original image is reflect it. So the second step in this case is reflect it across the y-axis. If I've got a marker of some sort, I probably want to mark that y-axis. In this case, what I'm going to do is just kind of dot that line here. And if I'm reflecting across the y-axis, this point R, which is 1 away on the right, is going to end up being 1 point away on the left. And now I'm going to call it R prime. We've done that before. So let's mark that over here, R prime. The y values stay the same. They're -3. But the x values goes from being a +1 to a -1. That's going to flip. And that should, hopefully that's starting to be something that's making a little bit more sense the more that we do these. S is the same thing. To go from S to S prime, I was 2 to the right, and now I'm going to be 2 to the left. So I go from +2 to -2, but the y value of -6 is staying the same. And we'll call that S prime. Again, don't need that extra space. Okay, so that was step 2. Step 3 in this case is going to be to rotate that new line segment, and I should connect those to really make a line segment here. When we rotate the line segment 90 degrees about the origin, that's where we have to go back and figure out what rule we're going to use. We had a rule for 90 degrees, we had a rule for 180 degrees, and we had a rule for 270 degrees. Okay, in this case, we're taking something that's in the third quadrant and rotating it 90 degrees, which means it's going to end up back here in the fourth quadrant. And that rule that we had used to make a 90-degree rotation was to take every x and y value, and what we did with them was switch them around so y came first and then the x, but we also had the y be negative. Okay, and that works every time for a 90-degree rotation about the origin. Okay, so now I'm looking at these coordinates. What had been -1 and 3, I'm going to flip them around, and I'm going to have -3, -1, except for, remember, this y is supposed to flip the sign. So what had been negative is now positive. +3, -1. +3, -1. That is going to be my R double prime, because it's going through the second transformation. Okay, I do the same thing with S prime. This was R, we might as well mark that while we're talking about it. I do the same thing to go from S to S double prime. I take these two and flip them around, so instead of -2, -6, I've got -6, -2, but then remember that y switches the sign. So this ends up being +6, 2. +6, -2, and there is S double prime. And then I connect those two, and that's where my new double prime image is going to be. You have an opportunity to try one of these on your own. Again, that step-by-step process is laid out for you. What we're doing is we're taking line segment CD, which are listed right here with the initial points, and you're going to first graph it, and then second reflect it across the y-axis, and then you're going to rotate it about the origin. So again, you're going to use that same rotation rule. And again, I'd suggest you pause the video here, really think through this. Don't just let me give you the answers, but try to do that on your own, and then kind of fill these blanks out as you go. So if you had the opportunity to do that, it should look something kind of like this. When you graph CD, those points initially are right here at -2.6 and at -1.3. The first thing that we're doing is reflecting it across the y-axis, and so you get D prime, C prime as your new line segment. But then you're going to rotate this thing 90 degrees. When you do that, you're switching from the first quadrant over here to the second, and you're using this rule to do it. Your xy's become negative y-x's, and so the new coordinates that you get are going to be -6.2. That's really coming from your C prime value of 2.6, and you get D prime at -3.1, and that's coming from your, or excuse me, D double prime. That's coming from your D prime value of 1.3.